The air is hot and loud as the helicopter noisily thumps back to the base. The land grows larger, and the people on it grow smaller as we gain altitude. Strapped to the seat in front of me is the young woman. She's asleep despite the noise, with me choking her out so she wouldn't jump off the bird to go and chase her boyfriend. At least he had some brains on him, taking off after getting bitten. I had to put 2 of his friends down, but we were in the air before I could finish him off. He won't last the night. How were there that many? I've only heard the stories of the other major cities, but seeing it was unreal. Thousands, maybe millions of them. Even as we get further away, I can still see them, the hordes. We're hundreds of feet in the air, and the mass of bodies that stretches all the way back to the city looks like a river that has broken through its dam. Are they going to follow us? Are we even going to make it back to the base before some bullshit happens and we crash? Does it even matter? How long are we actually going to last before we end up just like everyone else in the platoon, begging for my life as they give me my last lesson in human anatomy? It can't just be me. I can't be the only one who got out. Please don't let it just be me. I hear a voice crackle over the radio. It's the pilot.
Hey, specialist, wanna see some cool shit?
As he says this, I see a giant formation of jets streak over the city. And 5 seconds later, the horde begins to disappear in giant balls of white and orange flame. I hear the explosion a second later, and the girl is startled awake. Her eyes are wild as the blood enters her brain, and she attempts to make sense of her environment. Before she can move, I place my hand on hers and squeeze it. She looks at me, and I can see the recognition in her eyes. She slumps back into her seat, and her eyes go distant. We land at the base, and we leave the helicopter.
Follow me,
I say, and we walk towards the refugee camp.
You said your name was Nicole, right?
I ask, trying to get some kind of human interaction.
Yes,
she responds, her voice numb from her trauma.
Okay, Nicole, we're going to walk to check you in. You're safe here.
She looks almost amused by this. Everybody at the camp knew it was a lie, but there was nowhere that was truly safe in times like this. But it felt like if somebody were to tell the truth, that we were just biding time, running out of space until we either broke them or they broke us. Then it would all fall apart. We reach the tent and pass by 2 heavily armed soldiers as we enter.
We've got a civilian. She's clean. No bites or signs of infection, sir.
I say, walking up to the desk of the doctor.
And you are?
Specialist Morton, 4th Platoon, Charlie Company, 2nd Bat.
I say, going to attention. His eyebrows raise at this.
We've had survivors come in over the last few hours. Sound like y'all had a hell of a time over there.
Respectfully, sir, it was a clusterfuck. If I may, have you heard of anyone from 4th coming in?
If we're being honest, I couldn't tell you. I knew the Lieutenant Mace came back, but other than you, there's nobody.
A hole opens up inside me. It begins to swallow me in my entirety.
Understood, sir.
I say as I stand there, a shell of the woman that I was prior to stepping into the tent.
We'll take her off your hands. Keep up the good work, specialist. Go shower and return to your unit.
I turn to Nicole. I could tell she's nervous, but I could also see the strength beneath her. I realized that she was right there with me, and had been living in this city for months. I can't imagine what she's seen or done.
If you want to come talk or something, I'm in Building 6,
I say, extending my hand. To my surprise, she hugs me. It isn't a normal hug. You usually feel something.
I'm sorry,
she says, releases me, and heads to the back. After the medics check me for bites, I head back to the barracks. The building that was filled with laughter and colorful language a few hours earlier is now dead silent. I walk past the empty rooms and see the signs of habitation. Posters, family pictures, and other trinkets that gave the rooms life now laugh at me as I walk past them, showing me each and every person that was left in the alley while I was the one to make it back. I stop at a door. Stevens. I open it and see he's caught, sheets thrown together to make it look like he had made it, and perched neatly on top of his pillow is Reggie. I picked up the stuffed T-Rex and inspected it. He would sleep with it every night, cuddling it like a baby with his first toy. I still remember how excited he was when he first got it.
Dude, she's so fucking cool. Look at this thing.
As he holds it in my face and makes a loud screeching sound, giving consciousness to the prehistoric Beanie Baby.
At ease.
I hear Jabara shout as he heads out of the room, and the space becomes dead silent. Broderick, our platoon sergeant, saunters in, eyeballing each and every one of us as he walks through the room. He stops in front of Stevens and cocks a brow. "Specialist," he says, no emotion, hinting at what kind of mood he's in.
Yes, Sergeant.
Stevens says as beads of sweat form on his nose. "What in the unholy fuck possessed you to make that noise?" Stevens presents the toy like an animal being presented to a sacrificial altar. "And where did you get that?"
My fiancée gave it to me. Today's our anniversary, Sergeant.
Broderick snorts a laugh and then goes quiet.
That better not go on mission.
He says with a grin.
Air assault, Sergeant.
Stevens says, a smile growing on his face. "Air assault," Broderick says, and then exits the room to a chorus of the air assault chant. We had met in OSUD, sticking it out as the drill sergeants thought of new and innovative ways to put the wood to us. He never broke, not once. We then graduated and were in the same class as air assault school, blood pinning the wings onto each other, and neither of our families could make it to the graduation ceremony. We then received orders that we would be in the 101st, where we would serve together until today. We became best friends, helping each other through some truly tough situations. While we were never romantically involved, I wondered from time to time what it would be like to call him mine. Now that question will remain a question forever. My reminiscing is soured by my short-term memory as I see Stevens meeting an end. The desperate cry of rage and frustration as he's overwhelmed on the tarmac, and pieces of him start disconnecting from his body. He didn't deserve that. Nobody did. I take Reggie and head back to my room. I walk past Broderick's room as well, and I'm hit with another wave of loss. The man was hard, there's no denying it. A soldier who had seen more combat in his 15 years. He was a killer, stone cold, but he also had his soft spots. When I couldn't sleep, I'd wander the barracks, and every night I could hear him reading books to his children over the phone, and then soothing his wife, telling him that he was okay, and he'd be home soon. He never ended a call without telling his family how much he loved them. One night I heard him weeping and whispering, "No, please, no," over and over again. He wasn't the same after that. His sense of humor was gone, and it seemed as if his soul had been taken from him. That was a week prior to the mission, and it suddenly made sense as to why he went out the way he did. I make my way to the shower. I shed my gear. The mix of sweat, salt, and dried blood makes my plate carrier stick to my uniform, forcing me to put extra effort into taking it off. It lands on the ground with a clunk, and it feels as if 1,000 pounds has been lifted from me. I peel off the rest of my clothes and hop into the scalding hot water. The water can't get hot enough, despite my skin turning bright red at water beads reflecting off my flesh. I scrub and scrub, but it's as if I pierce a layer of filth. It goes even deeper. I find myself getting more and more frustrated, and I feel my hands begin to shake and my chest go tight. I feel the tears begin to well and stream down my face, and I cry for the platoon, for each and every one of them that I will never see again. I cry for the civilians that I couldn't help. I cry for Nicole and the guy who was bitten as he tried to climb the helicopter. I cry until it hurts, until I can't feel it. Eventually, I leave the shower and head back to my room and redress. I hear a knock at the door.
Specialist Morton.
I hear a voice from outside the door.
Yes.
I say, lacing my boots.
It's Lieutenant Mace. How are you holding up?
Well, I'll be goddamned. He really did make it. While he wasn't my favorite officer, he was a good one, making sure that we were taken care of and in good spirits.
Just fantastic, sir. It's a beautiful day out,
I say sarcastically as I open the door. His eye is bandaged, and his arm is in a sling. He looks like hell, but it's still good to see him kicking. I just came to check in on you. Today was a shit show.
I'm fully aware, sir. Did the civilian make it back to the tent all right?
Yeah, she should be fine. He stands there quietly, and then looks at me. I was also sent to let you know that battalion commander wants to see us for a debrief. Go eat some chow, and I'll meet you down in the TOC.
Not much to say. We got our asses kicked, sir.
I said the same thing, but they want on-ground accounts. And seeing how we're the only ones to make it. The desk is shiny, and it feels like I'm waiting for an interrogation. All that's missing is the handcuffs. Across from me sits Lieutenant Colonel Winnings, the battalion XO. She hasn't slept in days, and she has no problem showing it. Dark circles make their mark on her face as she sips her coffee. The door opens, and I shoot to attention as Colonel Bolt enters the room. He looks like he's been carved from granite and stands strong, able to weather any storm.
Relax, Specialist. Please take a seat. Can I get you some coffee?
He asks, motioning towards the pot behind him.
That would be awesome, sir.
He sets the coffee in front of me and pours himself one, and then we both sit down.
I'm going to be honest with you, Specialist. It's not every day that you lose a battalion, let alone in one day. We're still getting scattered reports of survivors, but as of right now, you are one of the select few who is on the ground, who is in any kind of condition to talk,
He says, pitching forward in his chair.
I understand, sir.
So, what happened?
Where should I start, sir?
The beginning.
All right, listen up, Mace says as he motions to a giant terrain model in the center of the dirt. This is live, folks. We're gonna head into the city and look for survivors. After our window is closed, we're heading home and letting our fisters have their playtime with the Willie Pete. He continues. I hear Stephen's whistle, which is silenced mid-tune by a glare from Broderick that looks like it could set something on fire. Mace then details the plan. Our battalion was tasked with making a small push into the city and secure a DMZ, allowing any survivors still in the city to evacuate before the city would be destroyed. We would be there over a 48-hour period and would have to hold them off while giving people time to make their way to us. It seemed like a good plan. We had an entire brigade, and we weren't just some regular nasty girl wannabes. We were the 101st, the best of the best, especially at this kind of mission. We would be entering in a massive convoy, allowing us to keep the roads clear, and allowing us to defend the airstrip with some pipe-hitting armor assets and heavy weapons. Our company would be tasked with holding a road, and our platoon provided security in the alleyways, giving a straight shot for the refugees to get straight to the airstrip. After the birds take off with the refugees, we load back up into our convoy and head home. We step off tomorrow morning. Air assault! The route to the city is relatively clear. We blast 9-inch nails over the intercoms to try and lure out any potential wandering roadblocks so we could clear them before they become a hazard. A few curious ones stumble into the road, and Stevens takes murderous joy dispatching them with his 50 cal. We watch as the rounds impact and they fall apart like Lego bricks. They become more condensed as we get closer to the city. It gets to the point where we have to dismount and clear them out. While the heavy weapons are doing their job, it doesn't prevent the stress of the situation, as more of them pour out of the buildings and shamble towards us. 2 on the left! I hear Jabara shout and then open fire. They got too close as he puts them down. His face is sprayed with blood as they fall. He falls back into the platoon, and another soldier, Blasto, takes his spot. We make very sure but steady progress as we make our way to the objective. After reaching the objective, we clear the surrounding buildings and start establishing our alley defenses. I'm part of a building detail, and my squad is tasked with clearing a 2-story apartment. Jabara takes point at the entrance, and we stack up. After counting down, Stevens kicks the door in, and we begin our clearing. The inside of the building is reminiscent of a butcher's shop, and blood is splayed on the walls like a Jackson Pollock painting. We're greeted by 2 in the hallway, a little girl with her arm missing, and an old man whose jaw is hanging on by the ligaments. They begin to shuffle towards us and are put down by Blasto, who scores 2 well-aimed headshots. The cycle continues as we move through the building, apartment to apartment, room to room. I begin to notice that I'm starting to run low on ammo and swap with Raymond to clear the last room. I tap Stevens on the shoulder.
Hey, you got any mags to spare?
Yeah, here you go. I hear a blood-curdling scream coming from the room, and I run in. The sight is almost something I can't comprehend. Raymond lays on his stomach and is straddled by a blonde woman. She's taking bites out of his neck and has dug her finger into his eye to keep his head still. I aim and fire, and the woman goes still. Raymond has stopped screaming. I then see Winston grappling with a teenage boy who had him up against the wall, clawing at him. The boy reaches for his face, and Winston grabs his arm, spins behind him, and throws the boy onto his belly. As the boy tries to get to his feet, Winston grabs his belt knife and drives into the boy's skull over and over again until the body stops twitching. He then gets up and starts stomping on his head. "Piece of shit, motherfucker," he says, continuing until the size 10 hole has completely restructured the boy's face. Stevens throws the woman's body off Raymond's back and flips him over. His head is weighed down by his helmet and doesn't move with the rest of his body. The woman chewed through enough of his neck that his head hangs on by a few strands of muscle and sinew. Winston stands over his body and begins to scream at it. "You stupid fuck! I told you to check those corners! And now..." Winston makes a strange noise, a half laugh and a half sob. A sound made of disbelief and sorrow. "God damn it," he says, taking his helmet off and running his hands through his hair. After he composes himself, he rips the dog tags off of Raymond's body and puts them in his pocket. Winston radios in. "Bad 7, this is Bad 3, over." "Go for Bad 7, over." I hear Broderick's voice over the radio. "Building is clear, 1 casualty, over." "Who was it? Over." "Raymond, over." "What's the status? Over." There's a long pause, and I see the antenna begin to shake as Winston stares at Raymond's body with a blank expression. "What's his status, Sergeant?" "KIA. Over." Another long pause. Raymond and Broderick were friends, with the older sergeant taking the private under his wing, showing him the ropes of the army. Raymond grew up with a single mother, and seeing Broderick as a sort of father figure, idolized him, and struck up conversation with Broderick at every opportunity. Raymond was the youngest of the platoon, which led to a fair amount of hazing, but he was always in good humor, until Broderick got involved. He took that personally, and was the only man that Raymond would take seriously. It didn't matter now. The bright-eyed soldier with dreams and potential of going far now lied on his stomach, with his head facing the wrong direction, in a growing pool of his own blood. "Roger. Rally with Bad 4 and return to rendezvous. Out." An hour later, we finished setting up our defenses in the alleyway. Sandbags, concertina wire, and machine gun nests stand in the way and hold strong against the shambling horrors. They come in by the dozens, only to be mowed down like tall grass against our platoon. Some of the guys have made games out of it, placing bets to see who has the highest number of kills before we exfiltrate. Others begin to tell stories about them, making fantasies out of boredom. The longer we stay here, the secret becomes louder. There isn't anyone coming, and we're all waiting and wasting ammo in a vain attempt to try and stop the unstoppable. What were we even doing here? Are we here to prove a point? To who? The commander? The president? The public? We should just pull out and start the bombardment early. We already have the 120s going to town, striking into the center of the city with airburst rounds to weaken the strength of the hordes in the center of the city as they make their way towards the noise of the DMZ. It creates a sort of rhythm, the gentle thump. Chunk, chunk, chunk. And then the explosions followed 30 seconds later. Boom, boom, boom. "We're almost out of here. Stay steady, check your mags, make sure you and your team are switching off every 30 minutes. I hear Broderick call to the platoon, which is met with a chorus of air assault. I hear a commotion at the front. "We got 4 more coming in." I hear Jabbar yell, "Don't shoot, we ain't one of them." I hear a voice scream from the end of the alley. At first, I don't think I hear correctly. And then, a minute later, I hear my name. "Morton," Broderick screams. "Yes, Sarge?" I ask and head up to the front. I almost can't believe my eyes. In front of us stand 4 living people, 2 men and 2 women. They look young, maybe my age. A stocky, muscular blonde man with a mane of unkempt hair down to his shoulders stands beside a tall, lankier brunette with short, cropped hair. His hand is bandaged, and he walks with a slight limp as they approach us. Behind them stands 2 women, a short blonde with piercing blue eyes and a much taller brunette, white-knuckling the revolver in her hand and staring daggers at us. "Take these people behind the barricade and go check them for bites," Broderick says. "Roger, Sergeant. Please follow me," I say, beckoning for them to follow. I take Stevens with me, and we walk behind the line.
We need to check for signs of infection. I'm going to take the ladies. Specialist Stevens here is going to check the men.
I face the ladies.
Please follow me.
I turn around and show Stevens my hand and nod back at the taller man. He nods as I pass and moves towards them.
You're going to need to undress, and I'm going to need to check you for bites.
They obey without question, and I begin my search. It's apparent that they've both lost weight. While not emaciated, they've definitely had to cut out the food. I notice a tattoo on the back of the brunette's arm.
O vos posil fide.
What's that mean?
I say, pointing at it.
Ye of little faith.
She speaks.
That's badass.
I say with a smile. They both return it, seeing that my comments put them at ease. They redress, and we head back to meet with Stevens. They're all standing and laughing. While Stevens watches them, I radio Winston for orders.
Keep him at the CCP. We'll take him back with us when we exfil. Out.
I turn to the group.
Okay, check it. We're gonna...
My radio crackles to life,
Holy shit!
which is followed by the 240 opening fire. I turn to see the commotion. Oh my god. There has to be over 200 of them pushing into the alley.
There's too many of them.
I hear another scream, followed by more gunfire.
Pull back. We are leaving.
I hear Broderick shout, but it's too late. Despite them getting caught on the concertina wire, despite them being mowed down by the double digits, they reach the barricade, stepping over the dead and collapsing the sandbags under the combined weight of the tidal wave of the shambling, gurgling dead. They don't just come from the front, but also the sides, and soon we are cut off from the rest of the platoon as they are surrounded. I then begin to see my friends fall. Jabara puts round after round into them, and he is the first to go down. They start at his legs and work their way up. He begins to scream.
Mommy, make them stop. Oh God, they're eating me, Mom.
He's cut off as they make it to his head and silence him forever. Winston is next, kicking one back into the horde until a massive one shoves him into the wall and begins to remove his organs. He shoots the muscular bastard in the face and then collapses. He meets my eyes, smiles, puts the gun in his mouth, and paints the brick wall with his thoughts and feelings as more fall on top of him. Others meet their end in similar fashion. Blastar recites the Nicene Creed as he's overwhelmed. I see Mace get crushed against the wall as his eye pulled out of his socket. I then see Broderick. He has turned his body into a weapon. He puts two in the little girl in front of him with his rifle and wheels to put down an old lady. His rifle clicks, and in one fluid motion turns his empty weapon into a hammer, which he uses to deconstruct the woman's head. He drops the rifle and hip tosses a little boy, steps on his head, and wheels around to drive his knife into the head of a naked woman with enough force that her eyeball pops out of its socket. I then see one take a bite out of his wrist, and another take a bite from his ankle. The weight of the horde takes him to his back. I see him kick one off, and I witness his final moments as he pulls the grenade pin from his vest and laughs.
I'm going my way, you fucks.
As he turns himself and everyone around him into jelly. We run to the DMZ, and the last of my hope dies with a whimper. I'm not sure the comprehension power of the human brain is made to see this many people at once. I switch the comms to the open channel and hear absolute anarchy. An orchestra of screams, cries, orders, and prayers fill the air as I try to make heads or tails of the sight. Many of the platoons are isolated, holed up in tents, or trying to make last stands in their foxholes and fortifications that quickly become mass graves. I see a pilot hop out of his cockpit and make an escape from the tarmac. His destination becomes unclear as he sprints past two more helicopters and into the open ground. He makes it to the top of a hill where they corner him. I've seen enough. I then hear a thumping and look to the opposite end of the tarmac. I don't believe my eyes. It's a lone Blackhawk, and the motors are beginning to take flight.
We're gonna make a run for it. Stay behind me.
We take off at a dead sprint towards the lone bird, and I hail them on the radio.
Bird 47, keep on the ground. I'm on the way.
I say breathlessly, becoming aware of how much my plate carrier weighs.
Who the hell is on the net? A voice crackles over the radio.
6 survivors en route to your Blackhawk.
We can hold it for maybe 5 minutes tops. Get your asses over here.
I see 2 of them step in front of our path as we pass through the gate. I switch to my rifle to full auto and dump a full magazine into them, and we keep sprinting as they twitch on the ground. I hear a crash behind me and a yelp. I wheel around to see Stevens as one of the ones on the ground trips him and the other puts his hand into his mouth and pulls. It seems like his face is almost torn off as the woman rips through his cheek and then bites his nose off. He pulls away, takes his helmet off, and proceeds to hit her in the head until the dent in her skull becomes a crater and begins to work on the other one. What's left of his face looks up as I begin to run back towards him.
Run!
He barks and then howls as a man comes and starts taking pieces from him. The blonde puts a bullet in the man's head, but then runs off as the others begin to envelop him. I turn and leave my best friend, the man who knew me better than anyone, the man who used to carry me back into my room when I was too drunk to walk. I remember the last words his fiancée said to me in the back of my mind. "You need to stay safe. He'll die for you if you're in danger. Please bring him back to me." I keep running. I gasp and struggle to breathe. My muscles burn, but I keep running. I've started to gap the survivors, but they're still keeping pace. I then hear screaming and gunshots, and I turn to see the blonde man and woman being eaten alive as they make a desperate attempt to reach for each other. I breathe out, line the dot of my sight up with their heads, and cease their suffering in 2 bangs. The taller man is frozen stiff at the sight, and me and the other woman have to drag him until his spell is broken. We make it to the helicopter as it begins to leave the ground. The man picks the woman up and throws her into the helicopter as I hop in. He grabs the handholds when a morbidly obese man appears to his left and takes a bite out of him. The man wheels around and punches the man so hard that the chunk of his shoulder flies out of his mouth. He then flashes a smile and runs off. The woman starts screaming and begins to try and leave as we take off. I hold her down and she punches me dead in the jaw. I cross my arms, grab her collar, and lean left. She stops screaming and slumps back into her seat. "That's quite the story, Specialist," Lieutenant Colonel Winning says. "It's true, ma'am. No doubt. You're incredibly lucky that you made it back in one piece." The Colonel says. I struggle to hold back a laugh. "Lucky? That's all we need from you, right?" Winning is interrupted by air raid sirens and red flashing lights. The door bursts open.
Sir, they've reached the outer wall. We need to evacuate.
A private says, out of breath. They rush out of the room, and I follow. I exit the tent and am greeted by thousands of the screaming dead, clawing at the quickly failing gates and crumbling walls. The foxholes are holding strong, but I learns today that their time is finite. I sprint back to the barracks and grab my gear and weapon and rush back out. They're pouring into the base by the hundreds. Many are mowed down by the Humvees who drive up to the entrance and unload their 50 cals into the horde. I feel a burning sensation in my neck and look down to see blood covering my shoulder. I turn around to see Lieutenant Mace chewing on my missing piece. He lunges again, but this time I move out of the way and put 3 in his face. I cover the wound in my neck and notice that the blood that leaks out of the wound has suddenly gotten darker, quickly turning black. I will not change. I will not become one of them. I whisper it like a mantra as I walk back to my room. I pick up Reggie and hold him in my chest. I can feel the warmth leaving my body, and an insatiable hunger takes hold. I laugh as I unholster my pistol and place it in my mouth. Lucky.
Thank you for listening and delving with me into the dark together.
Please remember to leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you feel so inclined. The more engagement this video gets, the more YouTube will push my content to others.
Thus, the following will grow.
All stories read in this channel will be available on Spotify, iTunes, and just about everywhere else. Links in the description.
Thank you for listening and feeding the cause. We'll be seeing you.